I don't know why I checked the photo twice. It wasn't particularly sharp, just dim lighting, plastic cutlery, and the usual Rhodes family setup. Folded chairs, disposable plates, someone holding a bundt cake too close to the edge of the frame. Near the center stood my father, one hand on the back of a chair, the other holding up a glass. Next to him, my mother, head slightly tilted, wearing the pale yellow blouse she saves for Easter and reconciliations. And behind them seated was my grandmother, Edith, wrapped in the old navy cardigan I'd bought her last fall. The caption read, "Celebrating New Beginnings. Welcome to your new chapter, Dad." My name wasn't tagged, not even in the background. I opened the county assessor's site out of habit, the way some people check the weather. It didn't take long to find it. The house on Sycamore Lane had changed names. The deed had been transferred 6 days earlier. My father's signature, crisp and flat. Edith's smaller, less certain. I didn't feel anything at first. I just stared at the screen, then at the teacup I hadn't rinsed from that morning. A small stain had set near the rim. The phone rang 3 times before my mother answered. Cass. A pause like air pulled tight. Maybe it's better if you don't show up anymore. Things are complicated. Let's not make it harder. No mention of the house, no mention of Edith, just a voice too calm for what had been done. She hung up before I could ask anything. Before I remembered how to ask at all. I sat at the table, fingers curled slightly under the edge. The chipped nail on my right thumb caught on the wood. There was still a folder of legal forms I hadn't put away from work, durable, power of attorney revocation templates, the kind of papers meant to protect people from exactly this. The mug on the counter still held the last of the coffee, all cold now, ringed twice inside like a forgotten warning. I looked at the photo again, zoomed in. They'd added string lights this year. Someone had set out cloth napkins. My old ones, I think the ones I left in the kitchen drawer 2 Thanksgivings ago. A red thread ran loose along the edge. I didn't save the image. I didn't close it either. Some erasures don't come with sound. I never expected thank you cards. But I did think someone might notice. There was a year I sent lilies to my mother for Mother's Day. Not roses she always called roses, the obvious choice. I added a note, nothing elaborate, just for the woman who made our home smell like vanilla on Sundays. She never mentioned receiving them. Once, I drove 3.5 hours through sleet to make it to a family brunch. I brought the apple cake Grandma Edith used to make. Same cinnamon, same folded parchment underneath. My father bit into it, wiped his mouth, and reached for another slice without looking up. My mother said, "Next time, less sugar. Your cousin's trying to lose weight." I sat at the corner of that table and offered to pour more orange juice. They always let me do the pouring, and the folding, the clearing. I became good at navigating silence, at keeping my tone even, my sleeves rolled neatly, my knees together. I laughed when I was supposed to. I never brought up anything that might stretch the table too far. At work, I once walked out of a deposition to pick up Grandma Edith. The facility had called. She'd wandered it 2 blocks away in slippers. I left without closing my laptop. The hallway lights buzzed when I signed her out. Marshall didn't open the door right away when I brought her back. When he did, he looked at his watch before looking at me. "I called you because no one else was free. Not, thank you. Not, we were worried." Just those 10 words clipped clean. Back at my apartment, I hand-washed the scarf she'd been wearing. It had picked up grease from a diner she didn't remember visiting. I made soup, sat with her until she drifted off. Then I caught the red blinking light on my phone, 6 missed calls from the office. I didn't call back until morning. Still, I sent flowers the next month. Still, I drove home for Christmas, even when they moved the dinner without telling me. I rang the doorbell while they were halfway through dessert. My sister looked at me from the hallway. You could have checked the group chat. I stood there, holding a dish I knew they wouldn't eat. It was still warm under the foil. Some people test the water by stepping in. I had been swimming in it, hoping the temperature would change. I used to wonder if omission could be accidental, that maybe someone just forgot the stamp, the note, the name. But then it kept happening. For my 15th birthday, an envelope arrived, no handwriting on the front, just a printed label. Inside, a store-bought card. Glitter on the corners, a generic cake illustration, and one sentence in silver script. Happy birthday to a special young lady. From all of us. No one signed it. I kept it in the drawer for a while, just to see if anyone would mention it later. No one did. The year I got accepted to the local law program, I brought the letter home folded 3 times, tucked between 2 bills, so it wouldn't look like I was showing off. I placed it on the edge of the kitchen counter where the mail went. Marshall glanced at it briefly. Well, at least that saves us on out-of-state tuition. That was it. No follow-up. No question about scholarships or how long I had spent working weekends to make up my GPA. The envelope disappeared from the pile the next day. I found it weeks later under a grocery list. At church, when Lily received the Community Youth Award, the pews were full. Pastor Boone listed names like they were pearls on a string, each one lifted slightly, held up to the light. Let's give thanks for the Rhodes family, he said, and for the remarkable young women carrying that name forward. I was there, in the 3rd row, holding a coat that wasn't mine and watching the corners of Lily's plaque catch the sunlight. She turned to wave toward the crowd, not toward me. Family photos became rituals of positioning. I never knew where to stand, so I waited until someone gestured. It was always the edge, near the end of the sofa beside a potted plant half in frame. One year, Grandma Edith took my wrist and led me toward the center. You belong here. Her fingers didn't let go until the shutter clicked. That was the only year I didn't look like I was stepping backward. Most memories don't bruise on impact. They settle slowly, like dust in a locked room. Not loud, just always there. I don't remember hearing the knock. I just opened the door because something felt wrong. She was sitting on the top step, knees tucked in, holding a small brown suitcase with one broken zipper. Her shoes didn't match. The left one looked older, or maybe just thinner. In her lap was the same cup she used when she read aloud to me, ceramic faded floral rim, one chip near the lip. She didn't look up right away. I didn't say her name. When I reached for the suitcase, her fingers loosened easily. They said you'd have more time, not more space, not more patience. Just time like I'd been given a chore, and a clock. Inside, I helped her sit. She didn't take off her shoes, just folded her hands over the cup again and stared at the wall where a calendar hung 3 months behind. She didn't mention it. I called my mother. You know your father's under so much pressure. Her voice held that particular quiet she used when she was about to hang up. Don't make this harder. There was no mention of the rain, or the transfer papers folded between Edith's coat lining. The ink had bled slightly near her signature. My father's name was dry and firm above it. I found a blanket and wrapped it over her shoulders. She didn't shift. Her mouth moved once like forming a question that didn't finish. They said I was just, in the way. No one from that house called back. No one checked if she'd arrived. I left the door unlocked for 3 hours just in case. Then I turned the deadbolt without thinking and poured water into the kettle, even though she didn't ask for tea. From the other room, I could hear her cough, dry, shallow. The kind that sounds like it belongs to someone already gone. She turned her face toward the back of the sofa and pulled the blanket closer. Her knuckles brushed the porcelain. When I passed the hallway mirror, I noticed I hadn't taken off my shoes either. They didn't yell. They didn't throw her out with sirens or warnings. They just placed her at my doorstep like something that no longer matched their living room. It takes very little effort to make someone feel replaceable. I used to think silence meant defeat. Now I understand it can mean decision. The group chat had 12 members, cousins, in-laws, people who forgot my birthday but remembered to send memes. I typed one line, "She's staying with me, please don't come." Then I pressed send and watched the message sink beneath an image of Lily's dog in a Halloween costume. No one replied. I didn't call the clinic. I didn't reach for lawyers or forms or declarations. I bought menthol drops and measured water into the kettle like I had when she had headaches in my childhood. Her cough hadn't changed. I found the red scarf in the back of the winter box. It smelled faintly of cedar and something older. I shook it out gently and left it folded on the chair nearest her. On the table, I placed a plate with dry toast, a mug still steaming, and a letter I hadn't sealed. The paper was stiff from waiting. The heading, "To those who stopped seeing me." Nothing below yet. Just the space where things settle before they are named. My phone buzzed once, a message from my sister. "You always make things harder than they need to be." I deleted it without reading the rest. Then I opened the settings, scrolled through contacts, and blocked the number labeled Dad, Office. The period at the end of the name felt too final. I didn't make announcements. I didn't tell anyone what I was choosing. I turned off notifications. I logged out of the place where they posted pictures of roast dinners and fireplace stockings and edited group shots. I used to count how many pixels I occupied in those photos. Now I don't check. That night I opened the kitchen window, not wide just enough for the air to change. The cold crept in, slowly, edged along the countertop, reached my wrist where the fabric had thinned from wear. I didn't move. In the quiet, I remembered something my mother once said at a birthday dinner after I offered to wash the dishes. Cass always finds a way to insert herself, doesn't she? No one contradicted her. I'd smiled then. Quietly. I don't need to explain why I don't speak now. I don't need to make a case for the space I choose. Silence can sound like surrender to those who only understand noise. I used to think quiet was what happened when something ended. Now, I think it's what begins when nothing is trying to win. The first morning I made black tea without measuring, just enough leaves to color the water. I sliced an apple the way she used to, peeling it in a spiral that never broke. The knife caught once on a bruise I hadn't noticed. We didn't speak. She took her time with the toast, folding her hands around the mug between sips. I didn't fill the silence. There was nothing in it that needed covering. Later, she sat near the window with a needle and thread. The scarf had frayed at one edge barely, but enough for her to notice. She stitched without asking. I watched from the kitchen, a towel still in my hands. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly, unsure what I meant, signing the papers, raising him, trusting any of them. She didn't look up. Her thumb brushed the rim of the cup. A small nod, not of yes or no, but of knowing. That evening I found an old journal under the bed. The spine had cracked from heat, and the first few pages were blank. I didn't write much, just one sentence across the center. I am still here, and I saw it happen. The days unfolded without a pattern. No visitors, No notifications. The radiator clicked unevenly. The curtains held light longer than I expected. I found a lavender plant at the corner store. Not the bright kind people post online. This one looked unsure. I placed it near the window anyway, beside the chipped clay pot she once called her lucky one. I kept her tea warm, folded the laundry in half sets, moved slower than I used to. A message came through on my phone from an unknown number. You should consider what this is doing to the family. No name. Just a sentence cut from something older used before. I didn't reply. I placed the phone face down on the counter and wiped a ring of water it left behind. Some mornings she hums not a song, just a low, half-formed sound. It never lasts long, but it fills the space between two sips. I don't ask what it is. There's a kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't fix things or erase them. It just stops asking you to explain. I no longer flinch when her name lights up my screen. The tone is predictable. Now, controlled concern, just enough softness to feel like pressure without sounding like it. Maybe let your father visit her. He's worried. No greeting, no punctuation, as if urgency excused omission. I didn't respond. Not right away. I set the phone down beside the grocery list I hadn't finished writing. Eggs, detergent, tissues, silence. That afternoon, an old classmate forwarded me an image from the local paper. Letter to the editor. Family deserves forgiveness. The byline read, Marshall Rhodes. In the photograph, he wore the navy jacket with the brass lapel pin. He'd always favored pieces that suggested authority without needing to declare it. The quote beneath his name was trimmed to fit the column. It breaks my heart to be cut off from my own mother at a time when she needs her family the most. He used the word cut like I'd used a knife. There was no mention of hospital discharges, no acknowledgement of doorsteps or rain, just the idea of a daughter gone rogue. That evening my phone rang. A number I still hadn't blocked. Cassidy, people are starting to talk. The pause afterward wasn't empty, it waited for compliance. You could clarify things, speak to the press, say this isn't what it looks like. I stood still, one hand on the back of the kitchen chair. I'm not saying anything. I didn't stay on the line to hear what came next. The following morning, I found an envelope under the edge of my welcome mat. No return address. Inside was a cream card with embossed lettering and a faint floral scent. Family is everything. Don't let a moment of emotion cause a lifetime of regret. On the back, a single sentence in small, careful cursive. Think of Grandma. Please. The final word curved upward like a question that didn't want to admit it was asking. I recognized Lily's handwriting. She used to press too lightly when we were children, leaving barely visible notes on thank you cards. Always hesitant, always legible. I didn't tear it. I didn't frame it. I placed it beneath the stack of old utility bills I hadn't thrown out yet. That night, I opened the drawer beside my bed and pulled out the letter I'd started on the evening she first arrived, the one with no date, no salutation. To those who stopped seeing me, beneath it, I wrote 2 words centered. Not anymore. I stopped explaining my choices when I realized the explanations were never the problem. The work is quiet. Probate forms final declarations, assets listed down to the last cracked saucer. I do it at the kitchen table between refilling Edith's water glass and checking that the radiator isn't whistling again. It's not impressive work. But it fits. Someone from the old firm reached out last week. There was an opening, full-time benefits, predictable hours. You've always had potential. Don't let this detour define you. The word sat wrong, like being rerouted was a lesser direction. I wrote a short reply, declined politely, and didn't reread it. Edith folded linens beside me the next morning. Her hands moved slower than they used to, but she still aligned the corners with quiet precision. The cloth had a faint tear, easily missed. You ever wonder if this is what you were meant for? She didn't wait for an answer, just moved on to the next square. I picked up one with a coffee stain at the edge. Not mine. Not hers. From before. I don't think it's wasted, I said, folding once, if I still feel like myself in it. When messages come now, I don't open them right away. I let them wait. Legal inquiries I respond to, personal ones go unread. Clara helped me prepare a single-page notice I do not speak for the Rhodes family. I am no longer affiliated. There's a version of me that would have hesitated before sending it. That version doesn't live here anymore. I updated Edith's medical file last week. Under responsible party, I removed Marshall's name. The receptionist didn't flinch, didn't ask questions. She just typed and nodded once. The lavender on the porch has started showing color. One stem bent under its own weight. I propped it gently with a wooden skewer from an old picnic drawer. Every afternoon I water it by hand. Not out of habit, but because it reminds me that something can grow even in shallow soil. A message came in yesterday from someone I barely remembered. Still time to fix things. You don't have to burn it all down to be free. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just moved it to a folder labeled Other. That evening, I wrote in the margin of a grocery receipt, "Freedom doesn't always leave ashes. Sometimes it leaves roots." I used to think closure came with sound, a gavel, a slammed door, something final enough to echo. But this one came in silence, paper, not stone. The envelope arrived with no warning. Thin, government-sealed, the kind that doesn't ask to be opened quickly. I didn't tear it. I used the letter opener with the small brass handle, the one from Edith's desk that never quite cut clean. In-seated formal language, black ink, 2 signatures. The house on Sycamore Lane was no longer in dispute. The transfer had been reversed. All decisions made under coercion nullified. No apology, just reversal, just undoing. I didn't call anyone. There were no celebrations, no glass raised, no message drafted. I stacked the papers with the rest hospital forms, intake slips, declarations signed in rooms too bright. Later that evening, I folded a different kind of letter. 1 page. No letterhead. At the top, I wrote my full name once plainly. Beneath it, 3 items. Withdrawal from all claims of inheritance. Severance from all legal or personal obligations to the Rhodes family. 1 sentence at the bottom, I am no longer there. I placed it in an envelope by hand, addressed it to Marshall Rhodes. No return address. I didn't print it. I didn't save a digital copy. I walked it to the post office on Lincoln Street and slid it into the outgoing slot myself. The woman behind the counter asked if I wanted tracking. I shook my head. On the way home, I stopped at the corner store, the one with the dusty magazines and the old tin register. I bought a leather-bound notebook. The spine was stitched by hand. The pages inside were faintly speckled, uneven like skin. At home, I opened it to the first page and wrote 1 line in ink. This is the first year I do not fear the name I was given. Then I closed the book and set it on the shelf beside the mug, with the faint crack and the jar of loose lavender heads that never fully dried. I don't know if he'll open the envelope. I don't know if it will be discarded with flyers and banking slips and political ads. I only know I won't be the one carrying its weight anymore. Some things don't need to be read. They just need to be sent. I still catch myself reaching for 2 cups. The one with the hairline crack and faint blue ring always ends up near the kettle, even when I've tucked it behind the chipped mixing bowl. This morning I boiled the water too long. The whistle didn't bother me. It filled the room like memory used to shop, then gone. There's one chair by the window now. It tilts slightly to the left, groans if I lean too far. I don't fix it. I sit there when the light comes in sideways, sometimes with tea, sometimes with nothing. Just me and the soft creak of wood. The scarf stays folded on the table's edge. I don't move it. I don't display it. I just let it be. The last message from Carolyn came in spring, a typed apology with no subject line. We all make mistakes when we're grieving. I didn't answer. There was no space in the words for acknowledgement, just the kind of sentence meant to seal a door quietly. One evening, I found a grocery list written in her handwriting, neat, slightly slanted, tucked inside a cookbook. She'd written cinnamon twice, as if the first had been too easy to forget. Outside, the lavender returned. Fuller this year. The stems are firm, the purple nearly bruised in colour. I hadn't expected it to thrive. I only watered it. I didn't hope. Someone from the clinic asked if I'd review a few forms. Power of attorney, final wishes declarations without witnesses. I said yes. I've started keeping a folder of papers too delicate to fold. Most have signatures that shake near the end. There's a photograph I never framed. She's not smiling, just sitting mug in hand, eyes turned slightly away. That's how I remember her best, not performing, just being. I no longer count holidays. I count the sound of rain on the metal awning. The day the mail arrives late. The afternoon the hallway smells like cedar again. Last week a neighbour asked if I had thread. I gave her a spool, then forgot. The next day a jar of jam appeared outside my door with no note. I didn't open it. I kept the ribbon. Some endings don't close. They just stop echoing. There's a sentence I wrote in my notebook this morning. Quiet isn't absence. It's ownership. I didn't write it for anyone to read, just for the page to hold. And now, with no one watching, I let the kettle whistle again just once before turning off the heat.